think I think it's not working on LinkedIn, but we're just going to go ahead with the podcast. So, hi everyone, welcome to A Girl in Love with Tech podcast. My name is Rachel Irabor. I'm a Microsoft Next Student Ambassador, a Power Platform developer, and also a Dynamics 365 CRM developer. If you're actually watching this video right now, try and watch it on either on Twitter or on YouTube because currently we have technical issues on LinkedIn. Yeah. So our special guest for today is Anthony Bartolo, who is going to be talking about GitHub Copilot because obviously GitHub Copilot is amazing. So hi Anthony.
Hey, Rachel, thank you very much for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. So please, if you can introduce yourself, so that we can know more about you.
Sure. So Anthony Bartolo, I'm based out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I am a principal cloud advocate at Microsoft. I currently lead a team that helps students and rising developers adopt Microsoft's tools to harness Microsoft services. I've done projects where we've taught drones how to identify life jackets in the water. We've built solutions that help children stay safe when people are trying to abduct them. I love learning by doing hands-on, and I love learning by talking and immersing myself in the community. Bringing ideas to the community is only half the fun. It's hearing what you all do with the activities and the services that teach me how we move forward and what we do.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so great. Like, community is always amazing. Yeah, thank you so much. So before we go ahead to talk about GitHub Copilot, so what is GitHub?
Back in the day, there was a challenge in regards to when software was being developed. It was being developed on individuals' machines, and nobody had line of sight in terms of who was doing what. And then, they started to do a hub and spoke type of scenario where it would be developed on a server, and then people would connect in. This takes it even further in regards to the code being shared on a repository inside of GitHub that allows for secure access to others to develop on, and then the ability to make changes and iterations, but do so in such a way that doesn't necessarily overwrite the code. So you'd have different versions of the code moving forward. This allowed for what we call source control, so that only certain changes were allowed to be pushed through onto the code set, but you could reiterate to older changes. The whole aspect of DevOps was born in terms of the communication between developers and between operations in terms of the services that are available.
Yeah, like creating a collaboration. Yeah, that's amazing. And I did a podcast presently with Microsoft Next Student Ambassadors where we talk about GitHub. And we also talked about GitHub Student Developer Pack. So if you're listening to this podcast and you are a student, please try to apply for GitHub Student Developer Pack and benefit from it. Yeah, thank you. And okay, while we go into GitHub Copilot, so what is GitHub Copilot? There's so much news around it. Copilot, yeah.
No, definitely. Before jumping in, I want to take it back a step in terms of how this whole revolution has occurred and where we're at with it. I wanted to ask you, what was the first mobile device or first mobile phone you used?
I think it was Samsung.
Samsung? Okay.
Yeah.
Was it a smartphone or was it just a regular phone?
Just a flip phone, yeah.
Just a flip phone, right? So I'm going to date myself. I my first phone was a Motorola DPC 550, which was a very big phone that you would unflip. But it was great because you had this communication back and forth, over a mobile device. You don't have to be at home to receive phone calls. And that was revolutionary. And then you had a situation where, smartphones came out. So my first smartphone was a BlackBerry, right? And being in Canada, BlackBerry was very big, and then it spread across North America. Most people thought that BlackBerries were only for business people, right? So you can check your stocks, you check your email, you have that, capability of connectivity. And then people caught on in terms of, well, it's not just about stocks and internet searching. It's about communication. It's about transferring of information. And it became really apparent that the world really gravitated towards the possibility of having information like that in the palm of your hands at all times.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. This is where we're at with AI in regards to development and using it as a tool. Copilot is that smartphone revelation that we can do more than just what we're able to do right out of the gate. So if I'm bringing up Visual Studio Code, I'm amateur at Python, and I'm learning to get better at it.
Yeah.
Copilot has really provided me that jump off point to really quickly hone my skills around Python adoption and utilization. It's not replacing what I'm doing, it's supplementing, and it's teaching me so that I can become quicker in the ideas and the way that I formulate my code. It's making me more proficient in the way that I create my code so that it uses less resources when I'm doing my implementation. It's that revelation beyond the, hey, AI is coming in, it's going to replace my job.
Yeah.
No,
People
it's
think
actually
that's a
making
lot.
me better.
Yeah, people think that a lot. They are thinking like, okay, AI coming in means that I do no longer have to hone my skills anymore, or I don't know, I do not have to, like, it's kind, AI is trying to replace my job. You understand? Stuff like that. So there's one thing I want to ask is that concerning students. They think about, they hear about GitHub Copilot and they are trying to think about, okay, where do I come in? How can I utilize GitHub Copilot? So what do you say to them?
So this is a discussion that's happening in a lot of educational institutions around the world, right? In terms of Copilot coming in, is it doing the assignments for you? Is it, I could say that there are things that we have to be cautious about, right?
Yeah, true.
In order to really harness Copilot, you have to know how to code. You have to know how to structure. You can go in and say, hey, Copilot, build an application for me. But when it builds that application, it doesn't take in consideration the requirements for that application. So if there are security requirements, if there are where data is supposed to be residing, data in transport in terms of security, who gains access to that application, Copilot doesn't take that in consideration. You still have to architect the solution. Copilot will help with the remedial task of I'm building an array, or I'm assigning variables, or I'm doing things that are repetitive. Or I don't know how to do something and put the variables in alphabetical order for their output. What is the best way to do that? And giving you that advice on how to do it. Have you ever done what we call paired programming?
No, I haven't.
So paired programming is when you have two people working on one computer, working on code. And you have one person who's actually typing on the keyboard and the other person is looking at the screen. And they're both providing suggestions and ideas as the code is being built. This scenario with Copilot is your AI paired programmer, in that AI is looking over your shoulder at the screen, watching what you're typing, and providing you suggestions on the go. The additional benefit now with chat now takes into consideration where instead of putting a comment inside of your terminal screen in terms of what you're typing in, it'll actually, you can ask it, hey, I'm trying to do this. How do I do it? I need to document this code. How do I do it? It's phenomenal. And it's really increasing the capabilities of developers in terms of how they harness and hone in the code to adopt services to deploy to the world.
That's totally amazing. Like the things GitHub Copilot can do. I think I was talking to someone recently, and we're actually talking about Power Platform, and he mentioned GitHub Copilot. Like GitHub Copilot is doing so much, and it's really, really amazing. Apart from talking about GitHub Copilot, what is GitHub Code Spaces?
So I'm glad you asked. So Copilot being the AI enabler inside of your code. Code Spaces is the makes everything a level playing field in terms of people's ideas being brought to the world. One of the biggest challenges in terms of resources is that not everybody around the world has resources or access to even computers. A lot of the audience that I talk to is in LATAM, and a good majority of them don't even have laptops and require internet cafes to do their homework. Copilot, in combination with Code Spaces, provides that ability to have this platform where I can go on into this developer environment that's in the cloud, and I can have Copilot enabled inside of this environment that can be set up by a professor, or it can be set up by an institution or organization, and that's where you do your development in your code. You have full-on Visual Studio Code, Copilot enabled, whatever extensions are required, and you can do this from a tablet. You don't even need a traditional computing environment.
That's amazing, right? That's amazing. It's bridging the gap.
And so with that implementation, now you have this capability that everybody has the same version of Python running. or the same version of a linter running, or same version of the extensions running. The code shared in its GitHub in terms of the availability and the versioning and the collaboration. But now everybody's developing from the same environment. It could be a Mac, it could be a PC, could be iOS, could be Android. It doesn't matter, because
but
it's all
the same
dictated.
Environments.
Right. And that's huge, because especially from a learning perspective, I've sat down with a lot of universities and colleges, and I've seen up to 2 days worth of work just putting together the developer environment. In this scenario here, 5 to 10 minutes, the environment is up and running. And the students are running with the application and running with the scenarios and learning immediately. And that takes away a lot of guesswork in just in terms of setup. And the same in an industry. If you're at an organization, I don't have to worry about, okay, for this, application, these are the linters and these are the application languages I need. It can all be set up inside of that code space, so that when it's accessed, everybody has the same playing field in terms of what they're developing, and there's no mishmash of what I'm supposed to be using to build out these tools.
Yeah, that's totally amazing, especially where it comes in with learning, collaboration. They get to build in one particular environment. Before speaking more about students, like how students can actually use this tools, I'm going to drive towards the business side and the organization side. Like a lot of persons, they are hearing about how GitHub Copilot can help them as an individual, like how it can help them with their codes and so many things it can do for them. But how does GitHub Copilot help an organization or a business? Yeah.
So the big thing with Copilot is learning how you code, learning how your organization structures their code, but still controlled by you. This isn't run independently. This is something that runs listening to you, taking directions from you. So from an organizational standpoint, you can actually set it up so that, hey, review my code, apply tests to my code. Is there better ways to do specific aspects of my code? It's that ability to strengthen and hone in the ability to code solutions on the behalf of organizations. So from a Copilot perspective, it can find inefficiencies, make your code more efficient, make your code more streamlined, require less resources. Maybe if there's an additional functionality that you're looking to add in and you don't know how, and you've been doing the research on a plethora of websites that are out there. Now with Copilot, you can ask of it, if I wanted to do this, how would you inject this into this code? Like I said, in terms of AI paired programming, it provides you the ideas and next steps on how to integrate that into your codes, which benefits an organization, because the skill set from those developers that are inside that organization immediately increase because of the capabilities that AI provides.
Yeah, it makes them more efficient. Yeah.
Yes.
Makes them more efficient. That's awesome. And there's one thing you just mentioned: developers, programmers. There's one thing I want to ask is that with GitHub Copilot, what do you think is going to be the experience for programmers now? What's like coding? What's it going to be like for them using GitHub Copilot? They get to when auto commenting, so many things that GitHub can do. But what do you think is going to be an experience for them?
I think the biggest thing is the evolution of what we deem as a developer. Is going to change, right? It's before it's this is somebody who's gone through computer science and has gone through rigorous training on developing on JavaScript, on Python, you name it. We first saw the change coming with PowerPlat, in terms of you don't need a computer science degree to use PowerPlat. You just need the logic of what you're trying to implement. I think what happens now is that the role of the developer evolves and includes more people into participation. I've seen students that have a business major or a medical major, or all facets of students now being empowered through Copilot to build out solutions, not just on Power Platform, but on all languages. And it's amazing, because when you have people from outside, computer science industry and vertical, they come with other ideas. They come with other capabilities. This inclusiveness is really going to drive us forward in terms of our creativity and our ability to achieve business needs. And so these students being empowered by Copilot, they're no longer hindered by, I'm not a proficient, Python developer. Now they can come in with an idea. They can do some research in terms of the framework, get some help. But Copilot can really quicken their ability to adopt code to build out these creative and innovative solutions that help the world.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really, really amazing. And there's also something that I've noticed. Like, there's actually a learning path, if especially for our listeners. If you are thinking of, okay, how can I get started with GitHub Copilot? There's a learning path on Microsoft Learn that is very, very, very well detailed. That you get to know, okay, this is what GitHub Copilot is about, and this is how I can get started. So while I was reading through the learning paths, and there's something I noticed is that you can use GitHub Copilot in Visual Studio Code. So how is that experience like?
So you can actually use Copilot in Visual Studio Code and in Visual Studio,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
In both scenarios, it's where when you're coding inside of the window, you can
Okay,
put in a comment and ask for a suggestion. Hey, I need to build out an array, and it will suggest the array to pull out. And then I need to build out an array that outputs in an alphabetical order or a numeric
yeah.
order, and it
Okay,
will provide you with that suggestion. To take it a
okay,
step further, Copilot Chat now takes it to the next level where it actually brings up a chat window that
yeah.
you actually have a discussion with Copilot. And in the midst of that, you can type in, hey, I need to do this. It
Okay.
will provide you the suggestions, or even better, it'll actually ask you questions to
Wow.
verify or specify what you're trying to accomplish, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I've been using it for the last little
Amazing.
while. And
Yeah.
it's been something where when you're having this open dialogue with AI, it is the
Yeah.
true nature of paired programming. And so, I need to do X and I need to incorporate these variables or these security parameters. And
Okay.
it'll ask questions of you to clarify, is this what you're talking about? And then
Yeah.
when you agree or disagree or provide more depth, hey, this is the code that you want to use, and
Okay.
even give you the ability to inject the code right from the chat window into the window where your code is, which is really cool.
Yeah. That's amazing. There's something that just came to my mind that I would like to ask. Is it that you are trying to train it to your specific needs, or it just suggests for what you want?
It's being trained by your specific needs, and that's why
Okay.
when you're using the chat function, it actually asks questions to clarify. So
Okay.
you're trying to sort an array in alphabetical order for output. Why
Yeah.
are you doing that? What is the purpose of that? There might be a better way to do it, and it's great because you're having this dialogue. It's not just, hey, do this and
Yeah.
away you go.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you mentioned that GitHub Copilot is available in Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. So most people are confused, like Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. So what is the difference between this? What's the difference between Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio?
So the way I explain it is, Visual Studio Code is you're getting started. You have an idea, you jump on your machine, the ability to
Okay.
create and craft and build out your solution. Visual Studio is when you have a lot of dependencies or a lot of
Okay.
depth inside of an application that you require more horsepower, more resources, more functionality in terms of what you're creating.
Okay.
Most, start with Visual Studio Code and get
Yeah.
familiar with building out in that IDE their solutions. But then when they want to
Okay.
go more advanced and they want to have the additional resources made available through the tools in
Okay.
terms of Visual Studio, it is a lot more robust in terms of what Visual Studio Code can do. Now, Visual Studio Code
Okay.
is free and that's available around the
Yeah.
world for that enablement. Visual
Yes.
Studio, there is a licensing requirement so there's a cost in terms of
Okay.
implementation. A lot of large size organizations
Yeah.
have harness that because of the complexities of their application.
Okay.
But if you're familiar with Visual Studio Code, to jump over to Visual Studio is very easy.
Yeah.
And it's something where if you're familiar with that interface, you can start right away. If you're starting out in a new organization that is harnessing
Okay.
Visual Studio.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you very much. So I'm going to go back to students actually using GitHub Copilot. So I read so many articles and also read on GitHub docs itself where they talked about GitHub Copilot being free for students. So how can they access it?
First thing is definitely check out my colleagues' posts. So Lee Stott
Yeah.
has a great post. I've shared the link with you, and I guess
Yes.
you're going to put it in the chat.
Okay.
This post is the process on how you can get the GitHub Student Pack enabled under your account and how you verify yourself as a student. This is the first important step to ensure that you gain access to the resources. The scenario here is once you've verified that you are a student, from a code spaces perspective, students get
Okay.
90 hours a month of code
Wow.
spaces access, which is
That's
huge,
amazing.
right? And that's not all. So aside from that, there's also the availability of Copilot. So
Yeah.
for students, Copilot is completely free for utilization. That is huge.
Yeah. So
Most people,
like
right? Most people, it's a 30-day access for trial, and then there's a
yeah.
paid subscription after that.
Yes.
But Copilot for students is completely free. You have to go through
Yeah.
these posts first to get verified as a student.
Okay.
It takes a bit of, I think it's like 48 hours of turnaround
Yeah.
time to get that done. Once you
Okay.
have that completed, you have access to all the resources and tools. So Code Spaces, Copilot, obviously GitHub. If your
Yeah.
school has GitHub Campus deployed, that's another great solution where the school itself will have their own private repository for
Yes.
all
Yes.
your code source specifically for the school. There are a
True.
plethora of templates that are available if you're looking to upskill in Python, in JavaScript,
Yeah.
in .NET,
Yeah.
all available through Code Spaces. Learning through
That's
with a
amazing.
paired
Wow.
AI with Copilot, it's phenomenal
Yeah.
type of resource. So definitely, everybody
Yeah.
should take advantage of that.
Yeah. So if you're a student and you're listening to this, please harness this technology. It's amazing every time. And you get it for free, not paid. Free. So what is like getting a free stuff? So, so it's amazing. Yeah. So another question I want to ask, I think okay. Christopher said something. He said on the comments, honing skills, improving my skills, not replacing me. Great point. So you can hear GitHub Copilot does not replace you, does not replace your job. It's actually an assistance. Yeah. It helps you. So it's amazing.
Here's so I've been testing this, right? And just
Yeah.
let's see what it can do for you. And literally I'll go into Visual Studio Code, I'll bring up chat and say, hey, I want to build a Pac-Man application, right? I want to
Okay.
build my own version of Pac-Man. And it comes up and says, okay, so here's what you should be
Yeah.
building, and gives you a bunch of questions. How big of a grid do you want? How many ghosts do you want? How many, players are going to be there? Are going to be playing at the same
Yeah.
time? Like all these questions, but it still hasn't written any code. And then you
Yes.
go through and answer all the questions. And then it says, okay, well, you should think about this snippet of code for this and this snippet of code
Wow.
for that. But it's still not coding for you,
Yeah.
right? You still have to build out the framework, the architecture, the front end in terms of the game and how it's going to display, and then the back
Yeah.
end in terms of the logic. I tell you, I've been challenged just building the logic between the ghosts identifying each other and colliding in each other and bouncing away. And
Yeah.
it's hard. It's not an easy thing. And just having Copilot build that out for you, it doesn't do it. So you
Yeah.
really have to understand this is the architecture of the software. It's making you
Okay.
better. It's
Yeah.
it's providing the questions that you yourself should be asking when you're
Yes.
building out this application. And it's curious in terms of understanding the way you even learn and the way that
Yeah.
it suggests what you should be doing next and what you should be coding next and how you should be building it.
Okay.
That's a big thing in terms of instead of
Yeah.
here's the answer, right? Could you
Yeah.
imagine what happens if something goes wrong with that code? What happens if there's the security parameters is
Yeah.
leaking information to the world? These are all the things that it doesn't take in consideration, but it
Okay.
asks you the question. It's intelligent enough to know, hey, let me ask to get further clarification to ensure that what's being suggested is in line with what the individual needs. That's
Needs,
a
yeah.
huge difference, and as
Yeah.
opposed to just code being created for you.
It makes like it jumps so many steps. It makes it easier for you that you don't have to go through the long process. Maybe let me say for an example, like now there are two processes to build an application, and you get to ask the GitHub Copilot what is the best way to actually build this application. So like who would they give sugar? The person will say, I would not take the sugar. Or maybe something they will give you something easy for you to do, and you say, no, I don't want to take something that is easy for me to do. So it's amazing. Then another question I have to ask is what is the future? What do you think is the future of GitHub Copilot in the lives of developers? Because it's amazing. Yeah.
As we go forward in terms of adoption of AI, it's
Yeah.
really going to not only increase the skill set of developers, but be that inclusive mechanism for those that aren't traditional developers, those that are not studying computer science, those that are studying
Yeah.
business or medical or other
Yeah.
industries,
Mathematics.
right? Well, that's the thing, right? So it's that
Yeah.
ability to be inclusive and to incorporate others' ideas. The other
Okay.
aspect to that is the ideas coming from around the world are now becoming more and more visible because of
Yeah.
technologies like code spaces. When you have the
Yes.
situation where the playing field now in terms of development is being equalized and everybody
Okay.
has access to the same resources and same tools now, and then you're
Yeah.
incorporating AI in terms of
Yes.
Copilot, the way that others think around the world. I've been learning so much from
Okay.
Brazil and from Mexico and from Argentina,
Yeah.
because the way that they think and the way that they address an
Yeah.
opportunity is different
Yes.
from what we see in North America. That
Okay.
incorporation is being learned worldwide and in
Yeah.
being increased in terms of capability through the adoption of AI like Copilot, so that
Okay.
all the world could take advantage and all the world can implement their creativity when building out solutions.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really amazing. And there's one question I want to ask is that how do you think people can get started with GitHub Copilot? Like people who are interested or they just started. How do you think maybe some people they have heard of GitHub Copilot or they are trying to use GitHub Copilot but they don't know how to start. So
The
what do you
best
tell them? Yeah.
Yeah, the best way is the Microsoft Learn module that you've shared out is a
Yeah.
great step by step. It shares how to set up your environment, how to build out your first application, what questions
Yes.
you would ask Copilot in terms of the next steps or what you would want to implement. There are a plethora of resources available. You can reach out
Okay.
to me as well on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. You'll find me under Wireless Life. Actually, all my social media platforms are under Wireless Life. I just
Yeah.
joined Thread, so that's going to be interesting too. It's something where reach out to the community,
Yes.
have discussions with the community. Podcasts like this, these are really phenomenal aspects of knowledge and information that we can
Yeah.
also share out in terms of how are we doing things. Let's
Okay.
talk in terms of and then communicate the ideas that we have. Learning from online is great, but immersing
Yes.
yourself in the community and sharing ideas
Yeah.
and having open
Very,
dialogue
very
is
important.
huge too. It's very important.
Yeah.
And
Very,
so
very.
if you're really jumping in and wanted to start somewhere, start with the baseline like Microsoft Learn in terms of
Okay.
understanding the concepts and ideas, but
Yeah.
definitely immerse yourself in the community as well to have dialogue with others so that you
Yeah,
can
it's
share
true.
ideas and learn from others as well.
Yeah, very true. Like there's nothing like when you share your knowledge and when you have the opportunity to talk to someone that you share the same goals. Like you get to talk about GitHub Copilot, what that person is doing. Like there's something I have seen is that when you are working on your own, you are trying to build things, you are doing things. There are some things that you don't know that are possible with that particular technology, and people are already achieving that. So when you get to talk to people and the person tells you, "Wow, I'm doing this, I'm doing that," and you're like, so it's amazing, yeah. So get into the community, learn more, start with the Microsoft Learn. Thank you so much, Anthony. And
Thank
do you
you.
have any yeah, do you have any other thing to say to our listeners?
I want to say there's no limit,
Yeah,
in terms of what you can accomplish. It's a big thing in terms of going into the unknown and
yeah,
trying something new. Um,
sure.
the whole aspect of AI makes it easier for us to try new things. Don't
Yeah,
feel that, I'm not proficient in Python and JavaScript and C sharp. That is
yeah,
gone. That barrier now with AI is gone. Not from an
yeah,
aspect that it's going to write all the code for you, but from
yeah,
the
true.
aspect of it will help you, it will teach you, it will motivate you
Yeah,
for that idea that's been lingering in your mind for the last couple of years to make
okay.
it actually come true now. And that
Yeah,
whole
true.
aspect of, because I don't have a PC, code spaces
Yeah,
addresses all that. Because I don't have
yeah,
the depth of knowledge on specific coding languages, Copilot addresses all that.
yeah,
There are a
yeah,
plethora of resources available on Microsoft, like on Microsoft Learn and on
yes,
GitHub to get you started. Immerse yourself in the community, have open dialogue and conversations,
yeah,
be a learn it all, right?
yes,
Be that
yeah,
one, that individual that goes out there, that's that spark. And you'll be surprised too. You would be a spark to other people in the enthusiasm and the ideas that you bring to the table. And that
yeah.
communication and community will help you move forward.
Yeah, that's very true. And there's also one thing I want to point out is that a lot of people are so scared when they hear about a new technology or they hear about a development to a technology. They are so scared to explore that particular technology. They are like, okay, I'm just starting. I'm just learning this. I'm just learning that. I've not really gone into this technology so much. So why do I have to like spread my wings? Why do I have to move into this particular technology or learn the new development to this technology? So you just have to spread your wings and learn. It's very, very important. You just have to spread your wings and learn. And what you also said is joining the community is very, very important. Hold conversations with people who are also learning the same thing as you. I'm having issues with my mic. Who are also learning the the same things as you. It's very, very important. And that has helped me so much in my journey with being able to hold conversations with other people in the community. So thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you very much, everyone. I think we do not have any questions on the comments. Just trying to. Okay. We do not have any questions, and it's working on LinkedIn. So perfect. So this podcast is actually to be able to share awareness about Microsoft technologies to different persons around the world. And you can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it on Spotify, Anchor Podcasts, and also Google Podcasts. So thank you very much, and see you in the next episode. Bye.
Thanks all.
Yeah. Okay.